be seated. Your Excellency, the President, the Honorable Vice President, the Chief Minister and other ministers present, members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, our donor partners, the Chief Electoral Commissioner and other commissioners, leaders of political parties, representatives of society organizations, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I would like to commence this presentation of the annual report and updates on election preparedness ceremony by inviting the presence of God with a minute of silent reflection. Amen, amen. Your Excellency, your abiding faith in democracy has been built on 3 pillars: building an efficient and independent electoral commission, second, organizing credible elections, and third, strengthening public confidence in electoral processes. Therefore, we are here this afternoon because this ceremony provides an opportunity for a manifestation of these 3 pillars. We will hear not just from the Electoral Commissioner and his team on the management and operations of the Electoral Commission for the year 2021 and the state of election preparedness of the Commission for 2023 elections, but also His Excellency will hear from his commitment to supporting an independent Electoral Commission and credible elections. Ladies and gentlemen, over the years we have also learned from His Excellency the President that as a leader, when you serve your people with sincerity and compassion, you lead with honesty and determination to better their lives and create a pathway for a progressive nation. That leader can also be a champion for free and fair elections. Therefore, on behalf of His Excellency the President and the Electoral Commission, I want to welcome all of you to this ceremony. And I now invite the Chief Electoral Commissioner for his statement and the presentation of the annual report for 2021.
Thank you, Electoral. His Excellency, President Brigadier Retired Julius Madabio, Honorable Vice President Dr. Jude Jallo, Cabinet Ministers present, members of the Diplomatic Corps and multilateral partners, Secretary to President, heads of departmental agencies, colleague commissioners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor to present on behalf of the Electoral Commission for Sierra Leone the Commission's annual report for the year ending 2021, in accordance with Section 32(12) of the 1991 Constitution. In addition, I will use this opportunity to update the government and the public on various electoral activities since the proclamation of the date for the multi-tier elections on 24 June 2023. A. Key highlights of the 2021 report. Governance of the Commission. His Excellency the President appointed Mrs. Zainab Mosiri as Electoral Commissioner Western Region, and she was approved by Parliament on 28 October 2021. Mrs. Mosiri is no stranger on the electoral stage of Sierra Leone, and therefore she brings to the Commission more added value. Electoral Commission restructuring. In the first quarter of 2021, the Electoral Commission expanded its structure from 10 departments to 15 departments. 5 functional areas including procurement, electoral education, gender and disability, data management, and media and communication, which were a unit within the department, and the whole structure were made into separate departments. The restructured institution enhanced focus on functional specialization and provided growth opportunity for staff members with improved conditions of service. At this point, I want to appreciate the work of the Ministry of Finance through Your Excellency for their consideration in giving 40% of salary increment to the staff and commission of the Electoral Commission for Sierra Leone. Conduct of by-elections. During the period under review, 2021, the Electoral Commission conducted one parliamentary by-election in Constituency 010 Kailan, one district chairperson by-election in Koinadugu, 7 councillor by-elections, and 17 paramount chieftaincy elections across the country. As at date, Your Excellency, we have conducted over 22 by-elections and over 30 paramount chieftaincy elections. And we are proud that on the 17th of this month, we are applauded by Parliament, by all parliamentarians across the aisles. Thank you again for the support. Infrastructural development. With technical and budgetary support from the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Finance, the Electoral Commission undertook the following construction and rehabilitation projects. Construction of regional and district office in Bo. The work is 70% complete. Construction of regional and district office in Kenema. Work is 75% complete. We hope that these offices will be ready by the next elections. Rehabilitation of the headquarters, funding received in 2021 and procurement process is at advanced stage. Rehabilitation of the national warehouse at Wellington. Rehabilitation of regional and district office in Bombali, 80% complete of the work. And upgrade of the IT and data management system at the headquarters and national data center at Wellington. Now we can boast that whoever enters our compound, we can capture the image through CCTV. I think that has never been done in that institution. Capacity building program. In 2021, commissioners and staff attended several capacity building programs. A peer review visit to the Independent National Electoral Commission of Liberia amid at learning and sharing of election experiences. A study tour visit with the support of the Electoral Commission of India by Ecsl team comprising of staff from Information and Communication Technology, Data Management and Voter Roll, External Relations Department. A technical training facilitated by International IDEA on electoral risk mapping and electoral risk management tool. Commissioners and staff participated in international election observation missions in Africa, Europe, and South America. Updates on the public elections in 2023. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, since the proclamation of 24th June 2022 for the multi-tier election by His Excellency and my good self in March, I am delighted to provide the following updates. Voter registration. The register of voters will be updated for the conduct of presidential, parliamentary, and local council elections in accordance with Section 12 to 40 of the Public Elections Act 2012 and Section 25 of the National Civil Registration Act of 2016. In March 2022, with reference to Section 22 of the Public Elections Act 2012, His Excellency the President, by proclamation, declared the period 3rd September to 4th October 2022 as the period for all eligible Sierra Leoneans to present themselves for the registration as voters. The Electoral Commission increased the number of voter registration centers by 10%. The number of voter registration centers increased from 3,300 to 3,630, The spread of the new voter registration centers was even across the country, with the emphasis on the geographical distances between the existing voter registration centers and the population density. I also want to inform that we are aware we'll be doing the voter registration when schools will be on, and therefore we are working with the Ministry of Education for us to put modalities in place for enhancement of the process without disrupting school activities. The Electoral Commission has concluded procurement of voter registration kits, development of the voter registration system and software, and 2,000 laptop computers and accessories for the voter registration. Delivery of this equipment is expected end of July to early August 2022. The Electoral Commission will use the 2,000 laptops, computers in two registration cycles of 15 days each within the registration period 3rd September to 4th October 2022. In each registration cycle of the 15 days, only half of the voter registration centers will be open across the country. The Electoral Commission is working with the National Civil Registration Authority on the interinstitutional arrangement for the extraction of civil registration data and provision of civil registration staff and registration kits for the purposes of updating the register of voters. We are cognizant of the fact that not everybody might be on the voter register, on the civil registration data by the time we'll be doing voter registration. And therefore we'll be making provision for those people to be on the civil registration as well as the voter registration record. With reference to subsection 4, update of boundary delimitation. With reference to subsection 4 of section 38 of the Constitution of Sierra Leone, 1991, the Electoral Commission has a mandate to review the division of Sierra Leone into constituencies at intervals of not less than 5 years and not more than 7 years. Therefore, the Commission has indicated in the strategic plan of 2020-2024 that the externality of significant shifts in the population distribution of Sierra Leone following the conduct of the midterm population and household census may cause the Electoral Commission to review the division of Sierra Leone into constituencies within the intervals referenced in subsection 4 of section 38 of the Constitution. The provisional results of the midterm population census and household 2022 indicate an increase in the total population and significant shifts in population at the district level in Sierra Leone. Therefore, for the purposes of boundary delimitation, the Electoral Commission has done the following. Resolve to review the division of Sierra Leone into constituencies using the minimum interval period of 5 years. Set up an internal boundary delimitation committee to facilitate the review processes. Sign a memorandum of understanding with Statistics Sierra Leone for collaborative support in technical and logistical matters during the review process. Parliament of Sierra Leone has confirmed that the number of seats for ordinary members of Parliament will remain 132 seats for the next Parliament. Submitted a budget to the Ministry of Finance for the conduct of the review of boundaries. The Electoral Commission will use the results of the midterm population and household census 2022 for the purposes of conducting the review of boundaries and has requested Statistics Sierra Leone to provide the relevant data. The timeline for the conclusion of the review of the boundaries, including enactment of the new boundaries, is set for October 2022. Updates on the recommendations of the election observation missions. Since 2018 elections, the Commission and other state institutions, including the Political Party Registration Commission, Office of the National Security, Sierra Leone Police, Judiciary, and Independent Media Commission have been very active in the implementation of the UM recommendations. The current public elections bill in Parliament, the creation of the Department for Inclusion, and several other progressive electoral initiatives are the product of the 2018 election observation recommendations. His Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, over 100 recommendations submitted by the election observation missions in respect of 2018 were classified into 6 thematic groups. Over 40 of these recommendations of the UN relate to Electoral Commission, and it is estimated that work in progress in respect of the implementation of this recommendation is about 75% complete to date. A few of the recommendations were considered inappropriate to be implemented. Updates on elections funding and interinstitutional collaboration. The Ministry of Finance has established the National Election Sustainability Trust Fund, referred to as NEST, at the Bank of Australia, from which the Ministry is financing the electoral programs of the ECSR. It is expected that other institutions will be funded from the NEST fund to implement their related electoral functions. The Chief Minister, in collaboration with the development partners, had established the Election Steering Committee, and the committee had met twice, and third meeting is scheduled on the 22nd July 2022. The committee comprises of relevant state institutions, election management bodies, and civil society organizations. The determination of the budget for the elections in 2023 is currently being discussed at subcommittee on the elections financing, and subsequently at the Election Steering Committee. Constraints. His Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, the Commission is not oblivious of the global economic realities and their impact on our national budget to address competing demands for national development. These have also affected aspects of the Commission's needs, especially for adequate transportation for both commissioners and staff. In this context, I believe that we can lessen the pressure on the Consolidated Revenue Fund by pulling and redirecting logistic support from other state institutions to service the electoral activities. For instance, the government may consider allocating some vehicles from other state institutions to ease the transportation constraint of the Commission and reduce the number of vehicles to be hired to support voter registration process. The Commission is working in collaboration with relevant institutions to strengthen and add value to our operations. For instance, the NATCOM. The Commission has signed an MOU with NATCOM, with the NATCOM to support voter education programs and outreach through mobile network service providers. We have also signed a memorandum with SLBC to support our media and voter education outreach. To conclude, His Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, as we accelerate towards 2023 election, the Commission remains committed to stakeholders' engagement, and I want to assure the public of the Commission's commitment to a peaceful and credible elections in 2023. Thank you for your attention. On this note, I would therefore, with your permission, Your Excellency, to formally present our annual report and related documents.
Thank you very much, the Chief Electoral Commissioner. At this stage, with your permission, Your Excellency the President, I would like to request for the Honorable Vice President to move from his seat to occupy the seat by the IG of Police. And also, most graciously, Your Excellency, I would like to request for His Excellency to proceed to occupy his seat. And I invite the Executive Secretary of Electoral Commission, Sierra Leone, to present an update on election preparedness. Can we have a moving mic from the back? Manuel.
Your Excellency, the President, Your Excellency, the Vice President, the Chief Minister, Honorable Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm here to briefly present the preparedness for the 2023 elections. The focus of the presentation will be around this particular slide, i.e. the electoral calendar for the 2023 elections. It started in 2020 when the Commission published its strategic plan for the electoral cycle 2020 to 2024. And in this strategic plan, we came out with an electoral calendar. We also stated in the strategic plan that the electoral calendar was established based on the existing legal framework of Sierra Leone, and that there were externalities which may affect the electoral calendar published in the strategic plan. Two of these externalities, as explained in our strategic plan, they included the conduct of the midterm census, and also by then the intention of the executive to extend the tenure of local councils from 4 years to 5 years. As things stand, these two externalities have been kind of actualized. In terms of the midterm census has been conducted, and now we have provisional results. And also the Local Government Act of 2004 was revised or amended, and as such, the tenure of local councils is now 5 years and no longer 4 years. So this definitely has affected the electoral calendar, and this calendar that we are now presenting will guide us to the 2023 elections. So the focus will only be on 2022 and 2023. We are now in 2022. In March this year, the President of Sierra Leone and also the Chairman of the Electoral Commission, they announced the dates for elections relating to the presidency, parliament, and also for local councils. 24th June to 2023 is the date for these elections. Between March and August, the chairman has already given some details. It's all about mobilizing of staff. We've already recruited ward coordinators. We have about 446 wards in Sierra Leone. Each ward has a ward coordinator recruited that will support our district offices to manage all the electoral programs at the district, constituency, and ward levels. Logistics, mobilization is also ongoing. Voter registration systems and equipment. As the chairman explained, we have concluded the procurement of vital registration systems and equipment, and we expect to receive them and start the aspect of training the staff at the highest level to the lowest level in the early parts of August 2022. Critically, in September, we will be opening our voter registration center to actually do the field data capture. The period is from the 3rd of September to the 4th of September 2022. And after we complete the field data capture exercise, we will then go into data processing. We will retrieve all the machines, download the data, we will clean up the data, deduplicate to weed out multiple registrants. We will be able to have a provisional or a draft voter register, which we expect to exhibit in November 2022. Usually the exhibition process goes with an inquiry process. In the event there are objections, and we usually contract inquiry officers that will adjudicate on these matters. By the 24th of December, specifically, which will be about 6 months to the election date, the 24th of June 2023, we expect to have finalized our voter register, because I think Section 17 of the Public Elections Act is quite clear, that says that the register of voters should have been completed at least 6 months to the polls or the election date. Voter registration always comes with the issuance of voter ID card. This will take me to 2023, and it means by January of 2023, we expect to print and distribute voter ID cards before we go into the nomination process. So I'll come back to 2022. There's another critical electoral activity that will run alongside the voter registration activity, which is the boundary delimitation of constituencies and wards. So the second part of 2022, between July to October of 2022, the Commission has agreed to review the division of Sierra Leone into wards and constituencies. So these are the main activities between July to October, broken down accordingly. First of all, the Commission has set up a boundary delimitation committee. We've also agreed a memorandum of understanding, Statistics Sierra Leone. So the preliminaries are ongoing, specifically in July, and we expect to do the seats allocation. It's an analysis of seats allocation, i.e., how many seats in terms of constituencies that are to be assigned or allocated to each district in Sierra Leone, and similarly, how many wards that are to be assigned to each locality in Sierra Leone. We have about 22 localities in Sierra Leone. So that will be it for July. In August, we expect to go out and engage stakeholders. Boundary delimitation should be a participatory process. Particularly the provincial stakeholders should be part of the process. So August will be dedicated to the aspect of engaging stakeholders. I skipped a particular step in July. By the end of July, we shall be doing what we call draft boundaries for constituencies and wards. Immediately after the allocation of seats, we will be drafting boundaries, and these draft boundaries for constituencies and wards should be taken to the provincial stakeholders so that they too can have a say on the matter, and they can influence the finalization of these boundaries. By the end of August, we expect to have final boundaries for constituencies and wards, and that will take us to the next step of report writing. We have to write a report, and we also have to describe each and every boundary for the constituencies and wards, and we should draft statutory instruments for the final boundaries that should be presented in Parliament. We expect that in October, the new or the revised boundaries should be enacted. This is a critical step in the boundary delimitation process, because we expect by November to exhibit the provisional register. The provisional register should be exhibited on the basis of the new boundaries that will have been enacted by Parliament in October. So the timeline for boundary delimitation alongside the voter registration process is going to be very, very critical. And then for 2023, the conduct of village head, the date has been set in February 2023 for the village head elections within the western area rural districts of Sierra Leone. And then 2023 second column, by April to the early parts of May, the nomination of candidates process. When we distribute cards, the register is finalized, we will then go into nominations, and then that will be followed by campaigns, which will take us to about 2 days up to the 24th of June 2023, because we usually have a cooling off day the day before the elections. Before we get to the conduct of the parliamentary, presidential, and local council election, there is also a critical election that is to be conducted in May of 2023, which is the conduct of paramount chief members of parliament as stated in section 4 of the Constitution. The two categories of members of parliament, they include the paramount chief member of parliament and the ordinary members of parliament. So for the PCMP elections, that's going to happen in May. And then in June, specifically the 24th of June, we will conduct we can call it the 4-in-1 elections for presidential, parliamentary, and local council elections. As a responsible AMB, will always have to make provisions for any eventuality. There may possibly be a presidential runoff election, so it has been anticipated and it has been factored in the budget. So if there is a presidential runoff election, it may happen in July of 2023. The rest will be the usuals in terms of by-elections and paramount chieftains elections from August down to December. And then in 2023, we usually have reflections in the form of post-election evaluation. So basically, this is the electoral calendar that will guide the Electoral Commission to the polls for June 2023 elections. Voter registration preparations. Quickly, we are now having 3,630 centers. Initially, we had 3,300 centers for 2018, and this takes into account the 10% increase approved by the Commission. And we have completed a process which we call the GIS mapping of voter registration centers nationwide. So we now have all of our voter registrations electronically mapped with GPS coordinates, and so we know where each and every voter registration center is situated. And then specifically for the field data capture, as the chairman of the Electoral Commission said, we're expecting the 2,000 laptop computers, and we'll only open half of the 3,630 centers at a time. We'll have 2 registration cycles. Each cycle is for 15 days, because we don't have enough voter registration kits or laptops. It means we can only open half of the centers. But the key thing here is the registration is going to be simultaneous across the country. It means registration will go on in each and every district of Sierra Leone. The only thing, only half of the centers in each district will be open for the first registration cycle of 15 days, and then for the remaining half of the voter registration centers will be opened. We are collaborating with the National Civil Registration Authority. They have the mandate section 25 of the National Civil Registration Act to give to the Electoral Commission data that will be useful for the update of our voter register. So we will work with them we are aware of the fact that some citizens have still not been registered in the civil register. And when we open our voter registration centers, we expect that these citizens will show up and they will not be part of our extracted data that will be stored in the laptop. So there an understanding such that the NCRA will provide staff and also the civil registration kits at each and every voter registration center right through the voter registration process to capture any eligible Sierra Leonean that intends to be registered as a voter and also to participate in the polls in June 2023. So basically, we are kind of set in terms of the understanding to make sure that no Sierra Leonean is disenfranchised. As long as you're a Sierra Leonean, you're at 18 years old and of sound mind, you should be registered. But we'll ensure that you first of all go through the civil registration process so that at the end of the day, the citizen should be both in the civil and the voter registers. As explained, we've completed the recruitment of the ward coordinators. What's ongoing now is the recruitment of the voter registration staff for each and every district. Only 1,800 plus centers will be open at a time, and we'll have about 4 registration officers per voter registration centers. So in total, it will be about times 1,800 plus, and that's about 8,000 registration staff nationwide that we are going through the process of recruiting. So that process is ongoing. And of course, we have concluded the procurement processes for the voter registration kits and systems. Another thing which I missed out is that we've drafted a memorandum of understanding to define the specific understanding between the NCRA and the Electoral Commission relating to the voter registration process. We expect to sign that MOU within the coming weeks. Boundary delimitation, subsection 4, section 38 of the Constitution, it's quite clear. It gives the Electoral Commission the mandate to review the division of Sierra Leone into constituencies within specific intervals of not less than 5 years and not more than 7 years. We should note that the minimum interval of not less than 5 years elapsed in February of 2022 this year. So we are within the legal interval to review the division of Sierra Leone into wards and constituency. So as a result, the Commission has taken the decision to review the existing electoral boundaries in light of the provisional results which the statistics Sierra Leone published relating to the midterm census. A boundary delimitation committee has been set up and they are working on all of the activities as I explained relating to the electoral calendar. Electoral legal reforms, in terms of preparedness, we need to have laws that will guide us through the electoral process down to the polls 2023. The process is ongoing. We started it since the end of the last elections in 2018. Series of discussions about reforms requiring amendments to laws. At the end of the day, we now have a bill laid in Parliament. It's the Public Elections Bill of 2022, and also there are related constitutional amendments that will be required for passage in relation to the bill, the Public Elections Bill of 2022. We expect that process to be concluded within the shortest possible time. We always refer to the ECOWAS protocol, which is advising ECOWAS member countries that we should not be changing our electoral laws within 6 months to the elections. So now we have enough time to have our laws changed and for the public to be acquainted with the new laws as we go into the electoral process. Elections financing, this is very, very critical. The main funding source for elections is the government of Sierra Leone. We're happy to note that in terms of the contribution to support the electoral processes, it keeps increasing. It was way down, I think, since 2002. It was mainly, the process was mainly funded by development partners, and steadily the contribution of the government of Sierra Leone is coming up. And we can say that I think for 2018 it was around 50%. For 2023, there is the commitment from the government of Sierra Leone to be the majority funder in terms of the elections. So the Commission is in discussions with the Ministry of Finance, and to demonstrate the commitment, the next fund, the National Election Sustainability Trust Fund, was set up by the government of Sierra Leone as a result of one of the recommendations, particularly coming from the EU. One of the recommendations is saying that the government should have an electoral cycle approach other than an annual approach for the funding of elections. And so to demonstrate that commitment, we now have a separate elections basket fund, which is now operational, and the Commission is benefiting from this particular fund. Also, we have other funding sources, development partners, specifically the European Union and also the United Nations. They are all having programs drafted for the support of the elections in 2023. We've also been informed by the United Nations that the government of Ireland, they're also supporting the elections project documents that they have drafted. So we have these funders in mind, and we expect that at the end of the day, the funding for the elections will be assured. Another development is that there is an ongoing elections steering committee. We've met twice this year. In fact, tomorrow there is going to be another meeting, and issues relating to funding of the elections will be discussed. This will be the last slide in terms of challenges. As the chairman explained, we are constrained in terms of vehicular logistics, so we expect that to be sorted out as we go into the voter registration process. And another critical thing which we will bring to the attention of this gathering is that for the results management system for 2023, the Commission intends to decentralize to the districts level. Over the years, it had been at the national level and then at the regional level. So it will require each and every district having a results management system. So preparations and discussions are ongoing relating to this particular activity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Executive Secretary. I'll also, in the same order, I'd like to request for the Honorable Vice President to return to his original seat, and His Excellency the President to take his original seat. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me the greatest pleasure to invite the champion of free and fair elections, His Excellency the President, for a response.
The Honorable Vice President, Chief Minister, Ministers of Government, Honorable Members of Parliament, our development partners, members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, the Chief Electoral Commissioner, members of the Electoral Commission of Sierra Leone, our Parliament chiefs, if any present here, civil society organizations and groups, the press, right groups, and organizations, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'll begin by thanking the Electoral Commission of Sierra Leone, both for its commendable efforts in conducting largely violent, free, and fair elections at all levels, wherever vacancies have occurred. You've done a good job, thank you. The parliamentary contests have been competitive. Both parties have won some and lost some. One party has graciously accepted its losses. One party may be not as graciously. But this is the nature of competitive politics. As a cursory look at the history of elections in Sierra Leone would highlight the elite domination of politics, a mindset where a party uses a toxic blend of divisive rhetoric, misinformation, and unleashes violence that is orchestrated and controlled by a few key players and the voting public. While some parties have never used that approach, some parties have probably significantly intensified its use. They would rather not present and debate alternative policies and positions and engage citizens in peaceful ways about why their positions and perceptions are better, or perspectives, are better. Our position as a government has always been that there is a better way, and I truly believe in that. First, we believe that a better governance ecosystem is good for our democracy. Freedom of the press is guaranteed in our laws, and we have removed seditious libel laws and unfettered free speech. No journalist is in prison for the practice of journalism. No media house has been attacked or closed down for what they publish or broadcast. The Independent Media Commission has a clear mandate, as we all know today. There is greater cooperation between law enforcement and the press. I call for both the responsible practice of journalism on all platforms on one hand, and zero tolerance for intimidation and threat by the security forces and the public media practitioners. Government has supported greater professionalism in journalism and had advocated for investment in the media. Journalists are working with development partners, international organizations, and national stakeholders to further enhance freedom of expression. As a consequence, Sierra Leone has moved up 29 places higher, from 75th position to 46th out of 180 countries in the global media rankings. Government, as you all know, does not interfere with the work of civil society organizations and rights activists who continue to operate freely within the ambits of the law. They have observed elections freely and generated and discussed post-election reports from all media platforms. Second, the Electoral Commission of Sierra Leone operates freely and independently. There is also greater access to justice, and citizens can now get redress from the courts on petitions and election-related matters as the courts deem fit. The National Commission for Peace and National Cohesion is now up and running. There is greater engagement of traditional and religious leaders in tamping down tensions within and between communities. Sierra Leone is now the fourth most peaceful country in Africa, for a good reason. Third, my government has instituted reforms that guarantee the equal exercise of citizenship rights, especially for hitherto marginalized and vulnerable populations. There is an unprecedented gender equality and women's empowerment bill in Parliament that guarantees greater participation, representation, and empowerment of our women. I urge Parliament to pass that bill. I urge parliamentarians, development partners, local stakeholders to support the passing of that bill in Parliament. Sierra Leone's progress on the issues of disability rights and participation has been noted in international fora. I applaud efforts by the Electoral Commission to form external stakeholders groups for gender and for persons with disability at the national level. I urge the Commission to cascade the formation of these stakeholder groups to the district level. In my response last year to Strategic Pillar 8 of the Commission's strategic plan, I particularly highlighted inclusion, participation, and equity as critical. I stated last year that my government approaches that pillar from a rights perspective, that every citizen has an equal and inalienable right to fully participate in political life, to fully participate in political debate, to be consulted, to vote and to be voted for. Gender, sexuality, disability, age, youth, level of literacy must not be a hindrance. They must be fully accounted for in the inclusive democratic elections at all levels. The views and voices of every citizen must matter on how to move this nation forward. I urge us all, therefore, stakeholders, citizens, development partners, to continue working to ensure that the future of elections in Sierra Leone is fully inclusive. Further, I'm briefed on the general support by the UNDP for the consultative conference that led to the adoption of 103 of 111 recommendations of the Election Observer Missions, EOMs. Progress on implementing details of the legal and non-legal issues has been mentioned. I urge the Electoral Commission to continue to work with other election management bodies and other stakeholders to fully implement those recommendations. My government remains fully committed to supporting peaceful, free, fair, and credible electoral processes. Dates for the parliamentary and local council elections have been declared at least 15 months to the election day. We have also proposed fixed dates for elections and other such reforms that will enhance the quality of elections and the governance space. The Chief Electoral Commissioner has also declared dates for presidential elections in accordance with his mandate. I'm pleased to note the constitution of the Electoral Commission in accordance with the excellent constitutional provisions. I urge Parliament to ensure that all regions are fully represented on the Electoral Commission. I also acknowledge the administrative and organizational restructuring within the Electoral Commission, and I thank partners and the Commission for working on further strengthening the capacity of the Electoral Commission's staff. Efforts to construct offices and warehouses at the district level are commendable and should support transparency, fairness, timeliness in delivering the results of public elections. I also wish to commend the Electoral Commission for preparations made so far regarding the upcoming voter registration exercise in September to October of this year. I urge the Electoral Commission to intensify its public sensitization effort on the processes and the procedures for voter registration. My government also acknowledges decisions and efforts at boundary delimitation in accordance with the constitutional provisions. I note the memorandums concluded with other agencies to facilitate both the voter registration and boundary delimitation process. I appreciate the immensity of the work and the time needed to successfully conclude the processes within the time set by the Constitution. The Electoral Commission can only count on the support of my government in achieving the best outcomes for Sierra Leoneans. My government will patiently await parliamentary deliberations and conclusions on proposed electoral law reforms. Parliament is the only competent body that will change existing laws, and I'm confident that their work is informed with what is in the best interest of our country, laws that permit inclusive, fair, peaceful, and transparent elections at all levels of our democracy. Aggrieved persons must also be able to access and receive speedy and fair hearings in a competent court of law. The mic is giving way. We think our partners can provide additional funding and technical assistance and support us in increasing voter education and civic participation of hitherto marginalized groups, especially women and persons with disabilities. So let me conclude, ladies and gentlemen, by highlighting that we have heeded the recommendations of the EON, opened up the democratic ecosystem with progressive rights and other reforms, improved the capacity of the Electoral Commission and strengthened its legal mandate, and supported equity and inclusiveness, both to represent and to make free and fair elections. I therefore acknowledge and receive this report with great optimism that we are, as a nation, becoming better at getting democratic elections right. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, His Excellency the President and the champion of free, fair, and credible elections. On that note, that is how we bring the formal program to an end. I would like to announce that for our guests, the Electoral Commission has also provided refreshments after the event. On that note, I invite His Excellency and the audience to rise for the national anthem. at the Vice President to invite Glory. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
My name is Patrick Salia from Freetown, where we cover the impossible or untold stories.